1982. We are sitting in the kitchen of 3 Hollywood Place, Cherry Hill, the home of the millions. Today is a special day because Lisa came home from college, and also our Auntie Flora is here from Florida, and we were all around the table to celebrate David and Lisa's birthday. Lisa is 20 years old and David is 17. And now I will introduce those around the table. Would you please give your name and anything else you want to say before we start?
Flora Baldadian.
uh, Dorothy Dictionary Parnayan Baldadian. My maiden name is Parnayan. And I was born in Erzurum, Turkey. Used to be, Erzurum was one time the capital of Armenia. I was born in 1909, and I came to the United States in 1920. When did you come to the United States, Flora?
1924.
Oh. How did you come from the old country to America?
I came to Cuba and I got married up there and come to the United States, Washington, D.C.
Who brought you to Cuba?
My cousins Sarkis Baldadian and George Baldadian.
I was born in Erzurum. My brother Martin Bartan, he was born in Erzurum too. But my 3 older brothers, Dikşan, Bedros, and Yervant, they were born in Arapgir. So my father was a merchant. He had import-export business in Erzurum. So he called for my mother to join him there. Finally, my mother went to live in Erzurum. That's where I was born. But in 1915, the massacre started. And the Turks notified that in 3 days, get ready, you're going to go on a march. But they didn't tell us where we're going to go or how long it's going to take or anything. They just say you're going to go on a march. Just leave everything in your home. Just take your personal clothing. And we will tell you where we're going later on. And you're going to be protected. Yeah, you have to tell her how it happened. So, well, first month we were on the highways, on the road. My father was with us. And he was a great help because he had horses and packed all our belongings and brought some of our treasures with us, oriental rugs and things, you know. We had money with us, and he made belt. My mother made belt with gold and sewed all around and put it on each child. We were 5 children. I was about 5 years old. My brother Martin was 2 years old. So we had to sit on the hebige. It's like 2 bags where your feet stick out on each side, and we balance each other. And so we were too young to walk, and we couldn't ride the horse because we were too young. We would fall off. So my father made this hebige where we had the seats. But after a month on the way, the Turks beat a bugle and said, we're going to have a meeting in the South Field. All the men come over there. So my father went, and we never saw him after that.
Because after a month on the road, where
Yes.
did you think you were going for that month?
We didn't know. We didn't know where we're going. Maybe my father knew that other cities were being evacuated into the desert. I mean, they had some idea, but I was a child. I didn't know. The only thing that I remember in Erzurum was I had a China doll that my father bought from a European country, and that was on the wall hanging, and I cried. I wanted to take this doll with me, and my mother said, no, we can't take no doll. We don't know where we're going to put our head tonight. How can we carry dolls with us? So that's the only thing I remember because I cried. So anyway, and I had a cousin, my father's brother's son, who came to Sanasaryan School. That's the advanced high school college for youngsters who come from various villas, from various cities, to get a higher education there in Erzurum. This school was in Erzurum. And my cousin came, and he had just graduated from Sanasaryan School. And they sent these students back to their own cities so they could be leaders in their communities with a higher education. And he said, Auntie, give me some money and I'll go bribe the guards and save Uncle. So my mother gave him some money. He went and he never came back. So the next morning they blew the bugle and we had to pack the horses and start out. My mother said, crying with 5 children.
How did you know your father was dead at that point?
We didn't know.
Oh.
We just hearsay that they were shot in a bag, buried in a hole. We never saw him. It was just hearsay. So anyway, we traveled 2 more months. And we came to the outskirts of Arapkir, where my mother was born, her hometown. And she had 2 sisters who lived in Arapkir. The older sister's name was Perlantu Mireshian. She was married and her husband lived in America. And the middle sister name was Yermonia Boyajan. And she had 1 son and 1 daughter. The son's name was Abraham Boyajan. And the daughter's name was Haji Dudu. And so...
What was that?
Haji Dudu, that was her first name. So every time my aunt heard that there was a caravan from Erzurum, she would go on they would come and park in the outskirts of the city. They wouldn't come in the city. She would go and ask the people there in the caravan, do you know anybody named Yevkin Parnagyan? Her husband's name's Garabin. She has 5 children. They would say, no, we don't know anybody like that. So one day she came and one person said, yes, we know her. She's in this caravan. So my aunt Yermonia came and found us. And she said to her, Kuiriks, meaning sister, don't go any further. They're all going to Derzor. That's the end of the road of the desert. She says all the bones of the Armenians are there in the desert. That's where they all go and die, or on the road. She says, you have to come to stay in my house. I will hide you and your children, because don't go any further. So when we reached that city, Arapgir, my mother said to the boys, see that house up on the road, up on the hill? That's my husband's house, my father-in-law's house. And we saw some people in the yard. And my brother Dikran ran up the road thinking that his relatives were there, you know. And he went, and there was Turkish people living in our home. And the Turkish family said, what do you want, little boy? And he said, this is my mother's house, my grandparents' house. Oh, they said, they left here long ago. We live here now.
Bye, hon. Where you
Bye,
going?
David. So the guard said, what is that boy doing up the hill? So he went and they questioned him, and he said, what is your family name? He said, Parnagyan. He said, oh, I know Evliya. Evliya was my grandfather, my father's father. He said, he is a good man. I liked him very much. He says, you're Evliya's grandson? And he came to my mother and said, you're Evliya's daughter-in-law? She said, yes. He said, I know your father-in-law. I liked him. He was such a kind and considerate man. If you need anything, let me know and I'll help you. So when my aunt came and we didn't know how to escape from that caravan, my mother said, maybe that soldier, the guard, will help us. So she went and found him and told him that she wants to go with her sister. He said, well, there's a confusion. Take whatever you can in your hand and go. Leave the rest here and I'll pack it. In the morning, let your sister come saying, I'll give him a paper saying she's buying this from us. And this way, he said, you'll go and get saved. So he was good to us, this soldier, you know, the guard. So we left before everybody settled, and we went and hid in my aunt's house. And the next day my aunt went and she bought our belongings. And stayed there. After a few days, the boys, you know, you can't keep the children tied up in the home. They went outside to play, and the youngsters in that area wear anteri. Anteris are like a nightshirt with a slit on each side. But my brothers wore short pants, you know, with lined inside. And where we came from was a modern city, Erzurum, you know, more advanced, you know, like European city. But Arapkir was a small country town. So the neighbor Turkish people went and told the officials that Mrs. Yermonia Boyacan is hiding her sister and 5 children in her home from Erzurum. So they must have questioned the children. They said we came from Erzurum. So one official came and knocked on the door and told my aunt, tell your sister to get ready. She has to go on the next caravan that starts out from this town. So my mother talked to him and said, please, please, officials, my children are young, they can't walk, and they're sickly. Please don't send us on the road. And she gave him a necklace she had, put it in his hand gently and said, please, please, forgive us. And he said, I'll think about it, and went. So 2 days after, another official came, said the same thing. She gave him another of her jewelry. So they left us alone for a while. So later on, orphanages were opened because all the children were out in the streets. Nobody was taking care of them. The Americans came and opened orphanages, and they needed orphanage mothers. So my mother went and became an orphanage mother to wash these children, comb their hair and wash their clothes and feed them and everything. And while we stayed with my aunt, that's how we got saved. Now you want to ask me any questions, Ruth? How did my uncles go to America? My Uncle Josep and Uncle Paul.
Now let's get maybe Daddy's family up into the time of
All
the
right.
massacres. First, I'd like to introduce the other people here. Would you? Would you like to give your name?
Well, no, let's continue with the...
Melian is here with us today.
I just wanted everyone to say who was here at this meeting. Would you give your names?
Lisa Melian, step 1.
Louise Mallion.
Okay. Auntie Flora, you knew Daddy before we all knew him. So maybe tell about, you were married to our Uncle Jack, who is Daddy's brother. Our Daddy had 2 brothers, George and Jack.
Yeah.
And you call him Pop, so you can say Pop whenever you want to talk about him. Why don't you tell us what you remember when you first met them, and maybe their childhood, if you remember anything about when they were young boys. Do you remember anything?
I don't remember, but they come to Arapkir when they little. Then my aunt take care of the George, Uncle George, and my uncle take care of the Saxami.
Now, how old were they when their father? Who died first, their father or mother? Do you know Mother?
The father died first, then the mother died.
How old was Daddy when his mother died?
I don't know if he was 10 years old or 12 years old.
And that's when they got.
They were sent to Arapkir to stay with
Where
a
were
relative.
they living when the parents died?
Malatya.
Oh,
They were born in Malatya.
but they're not Malachatzis. They always said they're Arapkirtis.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I was born in Erzurum, but I always say I'm Arapkir.
Why?
Because my parents
Came
were
from there?
originally from Arapkir, and we all said we're Arapkir. We never say we're Erzurum. Your father never said he's Malatya.
Right.
He always said he's Arapkir.
Right.
Also, it's easier to say.
Well, no, I think they like Arapkir better.
Oh, the whole family is Arapkir. You know,
Yeah.
they just went up there for business.
Oh, to Malatya, that's
Yeah.
where they got. That's where they were.
Yeah.
So you lived near them, their family.
No, she lived in Arapkir.
Oh, you were from
I was
Arapkir
Arapkir.
when they came
She
to
was born-
back to
Yeah.
Arapkir. And
I
how
heard
old,
that, I don't remember, you know.
oh,
'cause
how
I-
old were you when you met Uncle Jack?
Oh,
When I get married.
No, before.
Oh, did you
No.
know him?
No, I
No,
don't
no.
know him. He knows me,
Oh.
I was very little. He says, he was crying, he was wrecking my
Cradle.
cradle.
Oh. So you were a Baldadian, right? Your mother was.
Yeah.
So you had some connection with the family. And then when after their parents died, they each lived with a different relative?
Yeah.
And where did Uncle Jack live?
Uncle Jack come to United States.
Oh, at that
America.
time he
Yeah.
came. How old was he?
17, I think.
And you didn't come with him?
No.
How old was he when you got married?
33, I think.
Oh, and how old were you
14.
when you got married?
Mm.
Oh, so you were...
I was staying with my aunt, with your daddy, you know, Semi.
Right.
When they opened the orphanage, I went to orphanage when I was 7 years old.
Where were your parents?
Died.
In massacres or just natural?
No, my father was in army. He was coming from the Kharpet. He died on the way or something.
Oh.
Or they killed him, I don't know.
Or your
So
mom-
mother died after massacre.
Oh, right.
Where was the orphanage you were in?
Arapgir.
In Arapgir?
Yeah.
Oh.
The Americans came and opened an orphanage in Arapgir in all the cities.
Oh.
And they collected all the children from the streets. And they took them in and they fed them and clothed them. And then they found mothers and teachers to
Oh,
teach them and take care of them.
Was this after the massacres
Oh,
that
yeah.
you went into
Long
the
after
orphanage?
massacre.
Oh,
I was 7 years old when I went to orphanage.
right. Where were you during the massacre?
Well, I think my mother's sister, they had a bakery shop, Hatsakorjan. So they don't take anybody or SNF, you know, had something to do cooking or shoemaker or things like that. So my mother went to my aunt's house, and that's why we got saved.
Oh, right.
See, those that had trades, Ruth, SNF means you had a trade. Either you were a baker or shoemaker or something essential.
Excuse me, does Hatsakordian mean
Baker.
Baker.
Right.
So those people, they didn't deport them. They kept them because they had to bake the bread and make, you know, carpenter or something that was essential to their
Right.
Turkish living. So they left them alone for temporarily.
Right.
And so she went
We
to,
went to my aunt's house. We were supposed to be sick, 3 children in a bed, so they don't take my mother children.
And then how did you come to America? And how did Daddy come?
Well, Daddy went to Halebo because the Turk was going to take him to the army.
What's Aleppo, Syria?
Syria, Halep, Syria.
Aleppo.
Yeah,
Right.
Halep, Syria.
Aleppo.
And Uncle George went to Malatya, I think,
What's Malatya, another city?
another city, yeah.
Malatya is where they were born.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so he was with some Turk or somebody, Kurd or somebody. Then he come to Halep too. With
See,
Daddy.
Daddy had 2 sisters who were married. And they lived in Malatya.
Older sisters?
Older sisters, yes. So that's why George went back to be with his sisters, you know, and the family. But at the time of the massacre, they were deported and they all died on the road.
Who was? The sister?
Daddy's sisters and all their family, except one boy was saved. One of Daddy's sisters had one boy who was left alive, and the other sister had one girl who was left alive.
Nazlı.
The girl is Nazali, who's in France. We went to visit the other 2 years ago.
Oh, the one
She's
who
Daddy's sister's daughter.
Daddy's sister's
Daughter. And the one who told you you look like her mother,
Right.
that's the one. And the other boy who was saved was his sister's son, was in Armenia. And he was so nice looking, just like our John. Dark hair, great big eyes, you know, nice complexion. And he was 21 or 22 years old when he was drafted into the Russian army. At the time of the Stalingrad, you know, he went there and never came back. So they were sure he died at the war. So his belongings were left in his room. The last time I went to Armenia, they showed me pictures of his belongings. They said, "Who are these pictures?" That was from his
Yeah.
father's side. You know Alice Zakarian? No, it wasn't Alice Zakarian. No, it was another girl. From your church, Brenda.
Yegin.
Yegyan, her family. They were related to this boy. Her grandmother and all, they were their picture.
He was in Jerusalem, then he went to Armenia.
So you came to this country with,
Well, Daddy and Uncle George, they went to Cuba. And then Uncle Jack went to Cuba and married her, and he came back. Then later on, she came to America. And
No,
Dad,
I went to Beirut for 2 years for the orphanage.
from the orphanage.
oh,
I went to Beirut 2 years, then they got married.
and then you got married. And when you came to Cuba, you got married in Cuba?
Yeah.
You were 14 when you got married.
Mhm.
That's quite young.
Right. Did you know you were getting married when you were coming to this country?
Yeah, because my aunt says, don't leave the flora in the Beirut, take it with you.
Good.
Yeah.
The boys?
Boys, yeah.
What did you think when you knew you were gonna get married? Were you excited or did you have any plans?
Do you remember?
I don't even have married life. I was going to marry anybody.
Anybody to get out of there?
No, not that.
Well,
No. In those days, you really didn't have a choice, did you? Sort of.
no, you didn't have a choice.
They
In fact,
selected for
she
you,
wanted to
right?
bring her two brothers with her. She says, why can't we bring our two brothers? And Daddy said, no, we can't take them, just you.
When I come to a boys' orphanage, my brother says, where you going, sister? I says, I don't know where I'm going myself.
You wanted to get married, but I don't
No,
know where
I
I'm
don't know I
going.
was going to get married.
You didn't know you were
No,
getting
no,
married.
no.
British boys come and says, we're going to take her with us.
But they knew.
They knew, but she didn't know.
Did Uncle Jack say, you know,
Yeah.
bring Flora, I want to marry her?
No, he said, bring a girl with you.
No, I don't say
No.
like that. He says, I used to write to Uncle Jack, my uncle.
Oh, you used
Oh,
to
you
write
used
to
to write
I
your
used to write to
uncle?
my husband, my uncle, you know.
Yeah.
And I says, I'm going to bring you girl. One of my girlfriends, I'm supposed to bring the daddy, you know, uncle, your uncle. So I come myself and got married.
That's the best
She
way.
bought herself.
Oh,
Hey.
well, we're glad you came. And we're
Right.
glad you went.
Yeah.
So that, you really don't remember the massacres and all, and
No.
what was Daddy doing in the old country? What job did he have when he was young?
Shoemaker. He used to work with
He used
shoemaker.
to help the shoemaker
Yeah.
man out. I
Yeah.
remember you.
He
Someone
used to work.
tell us.
He used to
never
work
knew
with the
that.
shoemaker.
He used to
Yeah,
help the shoemaker.
he was a
man.
helper in a shoemaker's store. He used to go
Learning.
and
He
work
was
there.
learning.
Learning apprentice.
And you know, Auntie Flora's brother, the older brother who came to Paris to,
Right.
talk to us, he said, I used to go to the shoemaker's store
And-
and see him from the window. He used to call me and give him some money in his hand. He said,
He said, I remember your father as being
Yeah.
so nice
Yeah,
and kind
kind.
and
Yeah.
always.
Yeah.
My brother
Helping
loved him. Carlos
people.
was really loved. But I
Little.
left him, you know. Yeah.
Right, right.
Mhm.
So now, getting back
That's why the
to.
two families got together. My father was a shoemaker.
Oh, right.
So I
Louise's
said I
father
never
was a
heard that
shoemaker.
Daddy was an apprentice.
Well, what's Baldad mean? Baldadian.
Baldad, my husband's grandfather, his father's father, was honey. He
Taster.
produced honey. So the Turks, in Turkish word means honey taster.
Oh.
Bal means honey. Dad means taste.
What is Chemel?
Chamel. I
Do you
don't
know
know.
Chemel? I used to know. That's our name.
A friend of mine just told me it means a race of musicians, Melian, but that's in Greek. I don't know if that has anything to do with it.
No, Chemel. Something with mixing or
Oh, chairman. Oh, you
not Chemen. No,
No.
Chemel.
No, we'll have to look into that.
T-C-H-E-M-E-L-I-A-N.
that mean
Megadena C-H-O-M-E-L-I-A-N listen. Virtual naturalized their Ranne, they took the T-C-H-E off and just left it million.
oh, I don't know.
But the name originally was Chemel.
Chairman
So
sound like a
anyway,
Turkish name.
It is probably...
My two uncles, my mother's two brothers, Hofsep and Boaz. Boaz was the older brother. He was married in the old country.
To Auntie.
He had a beautiful wife there. And he had one child. But he went to Erzurum to work for my father, and he and Uncle Hosep. So Uncle Hosep used to fool around with the girls and all, and they weren't too energetic in working. So my father said, I'm going to send you two boys to America, he said, to make a man out of you. He says, in America, you have to work hard to make a future. So he paid their passage, gave them money, paid their passage, and sent them to
How
America.
about Uncle Paul's wife?
The wife was an Arabgir.
Don't you take your wife?
No, in those days, nobody took
Nobody
wives.
took a
The
wife.
men traveled here and there, and they went on their
The
own.
home.
The woman's
Yeah.
place was in the home. My mother didn't go to join my father for 5 years almost. So anyway, they came to America. After the massacre, when they heard that this massacre happened, they were in America. They came in 1913, I think. So my Uncle Josep went as a volunteer into the volunteer Armenian army, to fight under General Antranik. General Antranik formed the battalion to fight the Turks. So they went to France, and people from Armenians came from all over and joined, and they formed a battalion,
For the Gamavors?
Gamavors, and they went to fight
They went to fight
the Turks under the French flag.
Right,
But the French were backing them,
supposedly.
supposedly.
Yeah.
So they went and fight, and for a while, I don't know the details, but there was a time when the French were not that interested in killing Turks. They turned turntable. They were in with the Turks. The Armenian soldiers got very aggravated, and they quit the army, you know. So my Uncle Josep wrote a letter to my mother. He knew we were there in
Where?
Arabgir.
Yeah.
Everybody that was saved, they send letters to America saying, so-and-so saved, and 5 children, and so-and-so. They all read these letters, and they knew who was living, who was not living. So my uncle knew that my mother and his 2 other sisters were living, and our children.
How about the other Uncle Paul's wife? The pretty lady.
The Turks were after her. She was so beautiful. The Turks wanted to, snatch her. I don't know if they snatched her or, took her into
Or maybe she
their
went herself.
homes, or she killed herself. I don't know the details about that. My mother would know about it, but they died anyway. So Uncle Paul got married here with Auntie Cora afterward. So anyway, he wrote a letter to my mother, get all my sisters and your children and come to Adana, that's where I am, and I will take you to America with me. Right away, my mother said, I'm going. Her sister said, are you crazy? Where are you going in the desert, Everything's quiet now, we're being protected. You're going to go in the highways and byways and the chetas, meaning the bandits. There's bandits living in the hills. They're going to come and rob you and kill you. She says, I don't care. Let them kill me now if they're going to kill me, she says. In 1895, there was the Godrads. It was a massacre then the Turks had. In 1895, 94, 95. And my mother's family ran into the hills and hid into the mountains. The men tried to protect their families and their homes, but they were killed. So my mother remembers being in this hills in the mountains for 3 weeks. The town was burning. One day, my great aunt, who was like a real soldier, he was a domineering woman, she said, come children, come together. I don't see no more smoke coming from the city. Let us go back down into the city and find our home and see what happened. So they were coming down the mountains. She would go forward and look around and come and say, come, follow me. One point, she went forward and came back and said, now I'm going to tell you something, children. Close your eyes. Don't you dare open it. If you open it, you're going to be tanned. She says, when I tell you, you open your eyes. So my mother thought, what is it she don't want me to see? She says, curiosity got the best of me. Opened my eyes and looked. There was my uncle and another of their relatives were dead on the road, and the birds were on them. So to this day, my mother said, I regret opening my eyes because it would haunt me at night that they were dead and laying on the highway. And she says, they killed my relatives in 1895. In 1915, they took my husband and all my relatives. She says, I'm going to stay in this country, and for my boys to grow up and be killed again in 20 years, So she says, I'll go now to America. If God is with me, I'll reach there safe and sound. If God is not with me, or whatever is the God's will, let it be done, she said. But she had great faith in God, you know. My mother would get on her knees every night with her hands open outstretched. She would pray to the good Lord. So her sister wouldn't come. They were afraid. So she sold all her belongings. We had a billy goat that was a favorite of my brother Dickron. He wanted to bring the billy goat with him. They used to take him across the highway. There was a brook there, you know, Chai. And they would graze him, the three boys, and I would go at the end of the road and I would yell, Dikra, Bedros, Yervan, it's time for dinner. And they could hear it. It would echo on the other side from the water. And they would come home with their billy goat and have dinner. So he was so fond of this billy goat, it would come and lick his hand just like Peekaboo, you know. And he wanted to take it with him, but my mother said, no, we can't take no billy goat with us.
Why was your mother going to America? Who told her to go?
My uncle Josep was in the army, volunteer Armenian army.
Your Uncle Josep first went to America, right?
Oh yeah, he went to America.
When?
My father sent him there in 1913. He and my uncle Paul were sent to America by my father to make their fortune. So
This is before the massacre.
Oh yes, before the massacre. Fortunately, they were in America. But Uncle Josep used to do essential government work, working in the shipyard. They didn't take him as a soldier, but Uncle Josep volunteered to go to France and join the Antranic army as a volunteer from America to fight the Turks. So he went under the French flag and they fought the Turks for a while, but after a while the French got friendly with the Turks. They weren't protecting the Armenians. And so the soldiers got fed up and they quit the army. So my uncle wrote a letter to my mother and saying, I'm in Adana. I quit the army. You and your sisters and your children come and I'll take you to America with me. My mother said, I'm ready and willing to go, but her sisters were afraid they wouldn't come. They said, if we go on the highways and byways, by the time we reach there, she says, we'll be dead. There's chetas, meaning bandits in the mountains. They'll come and kill us and rob everything we have and leave us dead. My mother said, let us kill him, kill me now. I'm going. She started out. We sold all our belongings and gave her a billy goat. And we went to Harpet, which is the next large town, where my Auntie Elby's Seta's mother lived with her father-in-law. He had a gorgeous big house with marble floors. And we would open our beds every night, sleep on the marble floors.
Her husband was Baron
No, had nothing to do with Baron
Karnik?
No, that was her second husband.
Oh.
Her first husband's.
Oh.
Sinyan, her name was. So we stayed there 3 months. But the caravan leaders wouldn't take us because we had 5 children. They would say, oh, you have 5 children, we can't take you. They would cry and attract attention, and the bandits will come and kill us or rob us. We can't take no children, just adults. So my mother was very upset. She went back and forth every day trying to find a guide to direct us to the railroad station where it starts. Finally, after 3 months, she almost gave up. She would pray to the good Lord every day, please send me a guide to direct me to my destination. Finally, this one day, she said, I'll go today. If I don't find anyone, we'll go back to Arapkesh. She found this man. He said, if you give me so much money, Mejidia, means silver dollars, we'll take you. She said, fine. She had money with her, fortunately. And my auntie, another elderly woman whose son was in America, Agop Shaboyan, his mother was with us. She was an aunt to my mother. Ersabet Mama, we used to call her. She was with us too. So we started out, we came to where the railroad station was, where the boxcar were lined up. I don't know how many days it took, 3, 4, 5. We came by donkey or horse, I don't remember, I was too young. We were all packed into these boxcars, sitting next to each other. And we traveled, I don't know how many days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. We came to Adana, where my Uncle Josep was waiting for us. He must have received my mother's letter because he would, every time a train came, he would come and see if we were in it. This one day he came and he found us, and he was so happy. He had rented an apartment.
Who was with him there when he came?
All the soldiers, Mary's father, Baron Bedros, and all the other soldier boys, they were all waiting there for their families. And we stayed in that town 3 months. And I went to school, Armenian school, first time with a uniform with white collars, blue uniform, and learning, going to school. And my teacher later on came to America. I went to visit her in Philadelphia. She lived in Philadelphia. So after 3 months, we came to Istanbul, Turkey, which is the capital of Turkey. Constantinople now it's called. And we stayed there 1 year. And my Uncle Josep got married to Auntie Ardem. And then we left 2 of my brothers, Peter and Eddie, which is Yerbant, in the orphanage because Uncle said, I don't have no money to take all the children. We don't have enough money for the passage. So we left them in the orphanage there. In fact, he was going to put me in the orphanage. We got in this little sailboat to go across to the mainland to go to the orphanage. And I was deathly scared on that little boat. I thought, sure, it's going to topple over, I'm going to drown. But fortunately, we got over on the other side. We went to the orphanage, and the man said, how old is this child? I don't remember if I was 7 or 8 or 9. He said to my mother, wherever you go, take this little girl with you. Don't leave her in the orphanages. You don't know what goes on in this orphanage with children, girls especially. He said, if you're hungry or thirsty, let her be hungry and thirsty. So my mother said, thank God. God answered my prayer, because she didn't want to leave me there anyway. But my uncle kept insisting, what could she do? So we came back, and we packed, and we left for France. We left the 2 boys in the orphanage. We went in France. We were there 3 months. My Uncle Josep took his wife, Auntie Ardem, and my brother Martin Barton as his child and came to America. But he didn't have enough money for us to come with him. So we were left there, and then he went to America and sent some money for us. We went to the travel agent, Samsar called it that time. They cheated you. They would say you're going on the first class boat, and when you got on the boat, you were 3rd class down into the dumps. And it was all burst, and everybody's thrown up from there.
Thrown up too.
Thrown up, nobody could eat anything, And the boat traveled 1 month from city to city. It was a cargo boat. Tunisia, Gibraltar, and all these other cities before we came to New York. When we got to New York, we saw the Statue of Liberty. We all said, thank God we came to this America, which is beautiful, and the streets are paved with gold, and the money is running the streets. That's what we were told. And we got to Ellis Island, and we got out, and all stood in line to examine your papers. You have to have people come to vouch for you, so you won't be a burden on the government. If you don't have anyone to vouch for you, they send you right back to where you came from. Sponsor. And they looked at my brother Dick and his eye. They thought there was something wrong with him. They sent him to that side, and my mother got very upset. She cried. So the interpreter came and asked her, why are you crying? She said, well, my son had nothing wrong with his eyes. Why you send him over there? He said, don't worry, lady, I'll go get him. So he went and got him, and we were together for 5 days until Uncle Josep came to take us, but they wouldn't give him because they said, you have a wife and a child, you're not working, how can you support your sister and her 2 children? So he said, I have a brother who works for the shipyard in Camden. He said he's a bachelor. They said, okay, go send him. So he had to take a train and go back to Camden and get Uncle Paul to get permission to get off from work to come and get us. And he came and got us, and we went to Fairview, New Jersey, where they had a beautiful home rented. Auntie Ardem, Uncle Jose, my brother Martin, and Uncle Paul, my mother, my brother Dickron, and I lived there for 3 months before we moved to Camden to live there.
Where'd you move to Camden? What's
Camden, we moved to Carpenter Street, 10th and Carpenter, 1044. 3-story high house, running water and gas to run your hot water, no bathtub, no inside bathroom. It was out in the yard, end of the yard, it was a little outhouse. And every Saturday, my mother would put some water on the gas jet to boil heat, and she would put a wash basin on the floor. She would put us in it and make the warm water, hot and cold mixed, and wash us every Saturday. That was a ritual, That was our birthday.
What do you need of this?
And my poor mother, we lived there after a while. Uncle Osip separated. We had boarders.
Uncle Josep separated from
Separated? No, from us.
Oh.
We were a big family. No, they moved to another house.
Oh.
And we had boarders staying with us. This Johnny Varjabedian's father used to live with us. Some other boarders. They paid my mother. She would cook for them and wash their clothes by hand, no washing machine. On the scrubbing board, boiling on the gas jet, and wrung it out, and her arms would get tired with the great big sheets to wring them out and hang it outside in the sunshine, change all their beds, clean the whole 3-story house. I was a young girl, I used to help her, but I wasn't much help. But I used to go to school with, at that time. Me and Martin went to school, but Dick had to go to work.
What did he do?
He went to Chalakyan's, and Chalakyan's father had a grocery store and a vegetable store. He was like a,
Oh, my husband worked up there.
yeah, he was like a busboy there, like, helping in the store. That was his first job. And my mother had to become citizen to bring my other 2 brothers, because in 1921, the laws of America changed. The quota system went into effect. You can only become a citizen. If you're a citizen, you can bring your children or your husband or your wife. No other relatives to America. And so my mother had to go to school, learn the English language, and learn the laws, executive, judicial, all these things. She used to say, goes in one ear, comes out the other. With all this trouble she had, poor woman. She had to go to school to learn the language, to become a citizen. Finally, in 1926, she became a citizen, and we sent some money to Peter and Eddie. At this time, they were in France. When they became 15 or 16, the orphanage let them out. They don't keep them anymore. So we sent some money, and they took a passage and came to France. They were living in Paris for 4 or 5 years. And my mother used to worry about them all the time. She used to cry about them all the time. And finally, first Peter came, and 2 months after Eddie came, April 1st, 1926. That was April Fool's Day. I went and told all the neighbors, my brother Eddie came, my brother Eddie came. They said, we know, today's April Fool's Day, you're trying to fool us. I said, no, really, he came. They said, yeah, we know. So do you want to ask any questions, Ruth?
Well, let's have a little break. Okay, now,
You asked the question. How did
do you know how Daddy came to America
Well,
and what his story was?
Daddy used to tell me that he was like 16 years old, and they were starting to take him into the army, 15, 16, the boys, they were old enough to go in the army. So his aunt who lived with, Sanna Mama, the one that lived in Armenia, we went to visit. And
What was her name, by the way?
Osanna.
What her last name?
Osanna Baldadian.
And her children?
She had 2 boys and a girl, Arutun, Kevork,
Dudu.
and Dudu.
Right.
They lived in Arapkir, Yerevan, Armenia.
Now they are living there?
Kevork passed away the last time we went, but Arutun lives there and Dudu lives there, and they're married, they have
How
children.
many children do they have?
Oh, a lot. They're all married and they're a big family. The first time we went, there was like There was like 52 in the family.
Oh my goodness. What year was that?
1960, but now must be more.
Grandchildren.
Yeah, grandchildren and all that, you know.
This was Daddy's aunt, Osanna.
Osanna, the one he lived with.
My aunt
But
too. My
her
uncle's
aunt
And
wife.
your aunt too.
Yeah. And she said to her neighbors, only if I could see my Sarkis. If he came to visit me and I saw him, after that, I don't care if I died the next day.
She raised the
How old was she
circus.
when she
I was
died?
staying with them too.
I don't know. But anyway, when we got there,
This is to Armenia in 1960.
1960, we went to Armenia, Sarkis and I, and all the neighbors came and said, congratulations, Diginosanna Mama. Your son Sarkis finally came. You got your wish. She said, thank God he came. She was a great believer in the Lord. But her children were not believers. And they would laugh at her, scorn her. She had a little Bible. She would put it under her bed and read it every night. And I wanted to take her the big Bible, but Daddy said, they have Bibles there. You know, they didn't have any.
She was a Christian woman.
Wonderful Christian woman. And she was so happy to see us. She couldn't do enough for us and all her children. They were beautiful.
When did she die?
68 or 70, I don't know. They
In the
sent
70,
pictures.
I think.
70. Anyway, when we went 1975 to Armenia, she was not living yet anymore. And her oldest son, he was dead also at that time. But Aritun and Dudo are still living, and their children
They're
and
my first
grandchildren.
cousins.
First
Her
cousin.
first cousins. Anyway, Daddy and Richard in California, Richard Kalustian, he and
Another boy.
another boy that lives in Boston,
Magdon, something, Badveli's son.
Baldadian's son, priest's son, these three boys decided to run away, to go to Aleppo. That was Syria, under French rule then.
Run away from where?
Arapgish.
Oh.
No, you know what's happened? Hapsen $100, our orphanage big, Mr. Knapp. And Sarkis and my aunt went to get $100 so that make
Passage.
passage. That's why he come, but they don't have any money to come.
So they took the money and they started a walk. They're walking.
They took Auntie Flora with
No,
them?
no, not that time, no. Just the three boys. In the daytime, they would hide in the caves. At nighttime, they would walk because they didn't want anyone to see them. If the Turks saw them, they would grab them. They would send them in the army.
Army.
Yeah, and kill them. So anyway, they walked and walked and walked. I don't know how long it took, a week or 10 days or how long. Finally, they reached Syria, Aleppo, Syria. And over there, Sarkis started a business, a restaurant business. That's how we used to say.
Restaurant business, yeah.
He opened a restaurant with some of his friends, you know, but they didn't know how to cook. They were doing
They told the
something, you
pop to
know.
send the money, we're gonna open a restaurant. They opened it, how many days they could make no business, they lost it.
So then Daddy applied to come to America, but he took his application that Uncle Jack had sent to him, and they translated, but they didn't tell him what date his birthday was on this translation of the application, and he gave another birthday date. So when he would go to the
Office.
officers, they would say, when are you born? He would say one date, and it was another date on the application, and it didn't respond, and they said, you're lying. He was trying to make himself a little older, and Uncle Jack had made him a little younger. So they didn't give it to him. And this translator who works in the office said under his breath, don't insist, you know, say, I don't know. But he didn't understand. He was saying so low, you know, when he was typing, me but there, you know, he didn't know what he was saying. So finally they wouldn't let him go. They disowned him. So Daddy decided to come to Cuba. So that's when
As
he,
a stowaway, right?
no, they came to Cuba. Cuba was open.
Oh.
You can come to Cuba. Anybody
Oh.
could come to Cuba. They had money. Uncle Jack had sent. They paid their passage, he and George, and they took Auntie Flora from the orphanage, and the three of them came to Cuba.
Take 40 days to come to Cuba.
40 days.
It was a ship like, you know,
Cargo ship.
all the, yeah, all the cows and everything was on it.
Oh, animals,
And
animals.
Uncle, Daddy and Uncle George, everyone. I was the only one that
Didn't get sick?
Yeah. Well, couple Armenian ladies up there was too.
So they came to Cuba, rented the room. Everybody that got on the boat came to their room. You know, they didn't know where to go. They would say, oh, Sarkis and George Kirkor
All the
live
women,
here.
they don't want to separate it.
They say,
Mr. Sarkis,
Monsieur Sarkis, and they
They
would
can't
come. So
get
what
it,
could he
yeah.
do? You know, he can't put them out. They had
11
no place
people
to go.
asleep in one room.
Oh,
11
my
people in this
God.
one room next to each other. They would roll their beds and sleep
They
there.
all had a mattress and, your
Johan, they brought it with them. So each one slept with, in the room until their relatives in America sent money or came and got them, or they got a passage, or their papers were organized. So finally, Uncle Jack came and he married Auntie Flora
In Cuba.
in Cuba, and he went back until he got her papers organized, in America, saying he's married, and that's his wife, and he's going to bring her over. And when she
No, I come America, but I come to Kuwait.
she went,
They say, what you got in America? No brother, no sister, no father,
no
no
mother.
mother. I don't know the husband. They
She
say,
doesn't know the word husband. So she would say no mother, no father, no brother, no
I was
sister.
looking at her to good luck. Well, think they don't believe that I was even married, I guess. I stay in hotel 8 days.
8 days she stayed in the hotel by herself.
No, every morning, boy used to come and take me the boat, Sifen Armenian come, Put on a bicycle, I used to go up there and have breakfast and bring me back. And one day he says, you're not gonna go to Washington, you're gonna stay with us. I cry, he says, no, you're going home tomorrow.
Oh, so they sent you to
Yeah.
Washington.
So
He was a State Department man, I guess.
find Uncle Jack, try to find out why they weren't sending her, and he sent letters and all, and they found out she was married. Finally they sent her. So Daddy found out there was this boat, the man was bringing bachelor men across as stowaways. So first he sent George, another man, with this
No,
man.
in the America, man went to Cuba and Pop told him, give him $2,000, bring the George. But they have to come with the boat. Small boat,
Oh.
If they catch you, they got hold, they dump you in the water. They did a lot of Armenians like that, yeah.
So finally, George wrote and said that he's in America safe. So Daddy finds this man, and he said he'll take him. He and another boy from Boston,
Kirkor.
Zakarian,
Kirkor Zakarian.
Zakarian, Kirkor, these two. He took him on the boat. He had a false bureau. The knobs were there, but the back was no drawers. He put him in back, pulled the bureau away from the wall. They hid in the back of the bureau. And he left his door open, and after a while he would come and shut the door with a key. And they would get up and sleep on the berth, rest. And when he came and jiggled the door with the key, they would hide in back of the bureau. And he would leave the door open so that people won't think that nobody's in there. So one day, while they were in the berth, the man forgot to close the door with his key. The door was left open. The porter came and opened the door and called the man's name. And he came and pulled the curtains over, and he saw these two boys sleeping in the berth. And as soon as the man came, they told him, Daddy and thing told him that the colored man, porter son. He said, don't worry, I'll go fix him. So he went and told the porter, I found these two men in the coal bin, They were pathetic, he said. I told them, go sleep in my bed a little bit and rest. He said, they're going to go back to the coal bin. He said, you take some food and put it near the coal bin so they could eat it. It's a shame, he said. Those two boys.
Then he gives some money, the man, to keep quiet.
And then he would go and take that food and throw it out of the porthole, as if they were aided. So anyway, that way they came to Galveston, Texas. And
I thought
But-
they come to Jacksonville or
no,
someplace.
they stopped someplace for a week. He took them out and they stayed in the room, and then their boat was going to start again, and he brought them back in the room again. Finally, they reached Galveston, Texas, and he told them, now, if anybody catches you, don't give my name, that I'm your, sponsor or anything, because I'll get
Why they go
indicted.
to Texas way up there?
I guess that's where the boat was going to go. That was his destination. So he said, when the cargo is emptied,
All the boats come from
I'll walk
Cuba,
down
they
the
come to,
gangplank.
Florida.
and casually you walk behind me, but not too close, about 30 paces behind me, one by one. And you walk casually. When I turn the corner, you turn the corner. But if anybody sees you and question you, don't give my name, he said. I don't exist. So they said, fine. And the men walked the gangplank. Nobody said anything. They walked off the gangplank. When he went around the corner, they went around the corner, and the man got them and took them to a room. And he called the relatives in Washington and Boston and told them, your boys are here and they're in this room and this address.
Spend money.
And he got the money. I don't know how much it was, but this other boy's brother came from Boston to Galveston, Texas, and he got Daddy and this boy.
How old was Daddy?
At that time, how old was he? I don't know.
Maybe in late 20s.
1926, he came to America. And Auntie Flora was in the hospital. Johnny was just born.
Oh.
The day he came, Auntie Flora came home with Johnny as a baby, with the baby.
And uncle comes, he says, I got the good news. He says, Sarkis is coming,
He went to the hospital and
And
said,
where did Daddy live? In Washington?
he lived in Washington for a couple of months. Then later on, he came to Camden, New
Why?
Jersey, because there was this wool factory where Baron Von was a boss there.
Damrajan?
Damrajan.
Pop work up there too.
Uncle Jack worked there too one time. Also, Uncle Jack had a grocery store in Philadelphia, and his name was on the store, Jack Baldadian, on Girard Avenue. Down to,
It was there for a long, long time.
for a long time. One time we passed there, and Daddy said, "There's Jack's name still was on the store." So Daddy came to Camden, and he got a job at this wool factory. Then
How's he know Baron von Damrajan from?
Well, out up
Yeah,
there, see, they all know
they're
from
all
each other.
Khanamis,
Khanamis.
We tell them Khanamid is coming.
Yeah, and he got a job.
Yeah.
He got
No,
a job.
not yet, but
And then he
Pop
lived
was
with
in
the
the flood
Insidan,
area
you
a long
know.
time. He knows
He
the
was a
bond
boarder
around
at their house. They lived around the corner from us. And
then Uncle George
I
will
lived
take him to
with
Worcester.
I lived with my brothers and my cousin Abraham and Boo all lived together in one house. And I used to see Dad.
Do you remember meeting Daddy for the
Oh,
first
yeah,
time?
not the first time. No, I don't remember that distinctly. But he and my brothers used to pal around together. So I used to see him often.
Uncle George will take him to Worcester. Because he just like a dad, up. Then everybody says, Jack, you was down the house that you went upstairs.
You mean they looked alike? They looked like twins.
Exactly, yeah.
And every time they're one place, they think it's the
One
other
day
one.
George was upstairs and the customer was coming in the store. And he came and said, Jack, I saw you upstairs a
How
minute
you
ago.
come down
How
so
did you rush
quick?"
down right away?
Then one army man up there was have to go to court or something about the money. So if you know Papa's brother up there, you wanna tell government they're here. So we have to send it someplace.
So that
They
way,
did. They
really,
came to
Daddy and Uncle George did not come legally into the
No,
country.
they
So
did illegally.
he had to go to Canada to get his citizenship.
When I married Sarkis in 1933,
When was what date?
July 19. No, June 24th, 1933, I got married. But on my marriage certificate, the Harsur, the dead hide, wrote July 19. That was the day I applied. He wrote the certificate. So it's not the accurate date, but
Right.
it's a couple of weeks after.
What was your birth date, Mom?
My birthday, I came to America August 12, 1912. August 7th, 1912. But my original Turkish certificate, birth certificate, was November 11, 1909.